am a PA. I'm also a trauma and healing coach for Muslim women. I help Muslim women heal from trauma and build new lives after. And it has been so long since I've done a live video on this channel. It's been a few months at this point. But today's actually my birthday. I'm sure there are some of you guys here who don't celebrate birthdays and who'll watch this later, so you can ignore that. But I was having a lot of really, alhamdulillah, good conversations in the last week, and many kind of just moments of thankfulness, and I wanted to share some of them. And I don't have a script for this video. This is going to be off the top of my head. So obviously as a healing coach, right, I talk so much about the process of going from this constant state of fight or flight, not knowing who you are, not having this strong self-concept and trying to heal. Then you move into this place of finally recognizing it. You're in your enlightened state. Then you're trying to figure out all the work that you need to do, right? Assalamu alaikum to the people who are watching live. Feel free to comment, inshallah, and let me know where you're watching from. I think it'll show me your comments. But I had this moment earlier this week where I was just like, Wallahi, I'm so grateful to be Muslim. Wa alaikum assalam, Shaykh. I'm so grateful to be Muslim because I think about how difficult it would be to do self-improvement, how difficult it would be to better ourselves, and how hard it would be to suss out all the noise, all the things that people are telling you to do, right? To be better, to be a stronger person, to be more mentally, resilient, to be successful, and to actually figure out who's telling the truth and who's not. Who is being honest and can actually guarantee you success through their methods, and who's actually selling snake oil. It can be really, really difficult to tell. And then, I sat there and I was like, subhanallah. Even in the most difficult of situations, as Muslims, we've been given that. We literally have been provided a manual on life. We've been provided a manual on success, financial success, how to build mental resilience, how to build healthy relationships, how to find inner peace, how to heal from difficulty, how to cope if you are in the difficulty, right? Because we tend to forget, there's periods of your life where you're just struggling with something's happening, there's a hardship, whether it's illness or difficulty in a relationship, or someone you love is going through something hard, and so kind of by proxy or approximation, you are also struggling with it. And then there's moments after that, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna ma'al usri yusra, indeed with hardship comes ease. That pertains to the time you're going through the difficulty, that in that difficulty, you're actually able to see moments of ease, because we don't go through stuff and all of a sudden the rest of the world stops. It's not like when we're facing hardship, whatever the hardship is, that all of a sudden all the good things in our life disappear with it too, that our health goes to, and our relationships go to, and our friends go to, and the sky starts falling down, and now tornadoes and tsunamis are hitting, right? It's not like that. There's good in it too. And so our deen shows us that. And there's a reason why as a trauma and healing coach, although there's robust science now on this, right? We have a lot of research to help. I can never find myself coaching someone who is not Muslim. And the reason, even though I know I could do it, even though I know that there is non-Islamic tools that exist for healing, right? Even though it's because I feel like I would be cheating them. Because as I coach Muslims, right, and I work with Muslim women specifically, when I can bring up a verse and I know they've already bought into it, I know they believe it, there's something that hits differently. Assalamu alaikum to everyone who's watching live. Comment, you guys interact, inshallah. When I do this, I love seeing the comments, and like if you have questions, I'll respond. So feel free to do that. I'm just rambling right now about some thoughts that I had earlier this week. But it's so powerful. And here's the thing, right? In the Western world, especially, when we talk about healing, when we talk about the process, right, of bettering ourselves, self-improvement and healing, they tend to go hand in hand, because usually people who are doing self-improvement are healing from something. in the Western world, we talk about the mind-body connection, right? This idea that your mind and your body are inextricably connected. You can't separate the two. When you think something, inevitably, just because of the way that our body systems are set up, thoughts are essentially, if you want to get to like the biology of it, your thoughts are essentially neurons firing and communicating to each other in your brain, which then allow you to perceive a thought, right? And there's the added layer of consciousness, which we don't fully understand, but Muslims believe that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because only humans and jinn have it. This ability to actually think about what we're experiencing, reflect on it, have emotions, ruminate, like all of those things, even those are part of the blessing of being human. And those thoughts then cause reactions in our body. It's when you feel anxious about something, right? And all of a sudden the negative thoughts start spiraling. What ends up happening? I can look at people at this point in my work, coaching, right? I can look at someone in the grocery store. I can look at a patient of mine in the clinic, and I can tell when they are anxious, even if they don't say a word, because this is just, it's funny. I had one client who, I'll tell you actually the story after, but because I've had to understand the mind body connection, I can pick up the subtleties that most normal like human beings aren't going to be able to pick up. And I've identified it in so many patients who they themselves didn't recognize that they were struggling with anxiety until I was like, okay, this is what it looks like. Is that what you're dealing with? And they're like, yeah. And I'm able to kind of give them tools to support that, or to help to not be so constantly in fight or flight, right? But the mind-body connection is really powerful, and it's pretty well understood at this point. But as Muslims, we don't believe in just a mind-body connection. We believe in a mind-body-soul connection. And in fact, I did an entire halaqah on this. I actually posted it on, if you're not following me on Instagram, I will, if you go to any of my videos or my description on my channel, you will find my Instagram handle. But I posted the halaqah there if you want to watch the full thing. But the mind-body-soul connection is so much more powerful, because imagine this: if you're trying to go through your healing journey, let's say you're struggling with depression, right? Let's just say something, and you're only focusing on the mind and the body, and you leave out this third, point in the triangle, which is the soul. Well, is there ever a triangle that exists with only 2 points? No. And so there's suffering that follows, even though sometimes we can't always articulate that suffering. But my sister just texted me a question about Roth IRAs, but if any of you guys know, that's an investment account. But anyways, forgive me, and let me bring my ADHD back online. Wa alaikum assalam to everyone who's watching. Like I mentioned, if you're jumping on it, if you have questions or anything, like I'm just rambling here about healing and like how amazing Islam is, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us to be able to use it as an incredible resource for our healing and in our life. Just drop questions, inshallah. That mind-body-soul connection, when you don't focus on the soul part, what ends up happening is there's a part of you that you're rejecting. You're focusing on the mind, you're focusing on the body, but the heart is in need. And while we take care of our bodies physically, right? Let's say exercise is like the food of the body. We take care of our mind. Healthy thinking, building mental resilience is like the food of the mind. But what is the food of the soul? The food of the soul is our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so there's something that always gets me when I see people, and even sometimes Muslims who talk about healing, but outside of the context of Islam, it's like we're almost selling half a dream here. Because as Muslims, we believe that when we go through hardship, ultimately the goal is, if the hardship is bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a blessing. And if it distances us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the distance is always on our part, because Allah doesn't move, we move, right? We end up in a situation where it's almost like in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it as like they sold their soul for pennies. Like you sold your faith or iman for pennies. Imagine you do heal, but you heal outside of the realm of deen. You heal at the expense of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you feel happy, right? Everyone's chasing happiness. We all want to feel happiness, right? But at what cost? And what if I can tell you that you can actually experience that happiness while not sacrificing your akhirah? That's how incredible it is. Let me see how I can actually see your comments. Why is it not letting me? It popped up, and then let me see. Give me a second. How do I do this? Oh my God, you guys. Why is it not showing? I'm sorry. For some reason, it's not showing the comments, you guys. I initially saw them pop up. So someone said something sweet. How about if you redo your comment? Copy and paste it again. I'll read it when it pops up this time, inshallah. Someone said something sweet about liking my videos. I'll pause while I'm and see if I maybe can click the comment as I'm speaking. But the point being, you guys, is you can have both. You really can. And I coach ladies who experience trauma. And let's talk about trauma for a second, right? Because trauma is not, it's not feeling bad. People think like trauma is just a bad experience that makes you feel good. We've minimized trauma. The word trauma is a pretty heavy word, and everything's like, oh my God, that was so traumatic. No, it wasn't. Says no, it was just stressful. Stress is not always traumatic. Stress is not trauma. And also, not every traumatic experience that you do experience will leave you traumatized. And so because we don't fully understand the word, and we don't understand actually what trauma is, we minimize it. And so when you actually do experience a trauma, you're like, oh shoot, like, what am I supposed to do here? And the ladies who have actually experienced trauma and come to work with me, and we're working through some pretty deep stuff that if I say, can you heal autoimmune caused by trauma? Thank you, Crystal. I will say, can you heal autoimmune caused by trauma? This is a very complex question, because when you say heal autoimmune, we can put autoimmune in remission, but the reality of it is that just like diabetes, when your body has gotten to that point, that means that if you're not doing certain things to put it into remission, as soon as you don't do those things, it'll come right back up. Whereas to suggest something is healed, if it's healed, then even if you did the wrong things, the symptoms shouldn't come up, right? The pathological process shouldn't happen. Example, if I broke my arm, I know when my arm's healed, when the bone has fused back together, where the fracture was, and it doesn't hurt anymore. Now, at that point, what actually happens is your body lays down like a callus on top of the bone, so that area is actually harder to break next time. But if I have osteoporosis and I'm like trying to do all the great things, if I fall off the sidewalk and I have weak bones, I'm gonna break my bones, right? So autoimmune, can you resolve it? You can put it into remission, certainly, and actually healing trauma can help manage symptoms. I have two clients actually who have autoimmune conditions, and because autoimmunity is so the symptoms can one of the triggers for so many autoimmune conditions is a negative emotional state, stress, or often things that are associated with stress. So not eating well, not sleeping well. If you imagine you're stressed, you're not going to sleep well. Those can all be triggered. When we resolve those, we can lower at least the symptomatology, and sometimes you can put it into full remission. Yes. There have been people that do it. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It's a very holistic process. It's not just about healing your trauma. It's getting your diet right. It's getting your physical activity right. But yes, you can. And I know a lot of people try to make it seem like you can, but the body, subhanAllah, is extremely resilient and powerful. I hope that answers your question. Sister, do you have any tips with negative thinking? Wallahi, I always have bad thoughts about myself. And through stress, I've lost a lot of hair since I'm focusing on only negatives. Okay, it disappeared so quickly for some reason. Can someone send a comment, Assalamu alaikum, so I can click on it and see if it'll show me, like, just send a message. I want to click on it before it disappears. And I'll give my tips, inshallah, on dealing with negative thoughts. Okay, so I have a video on this. Let's see. Thank you so much. Nope, it doesn't bring up the comments. That's so silly. That's so silly that YouTube does that. Dealing with negative thoughts, I actually have an entire video, and I recommend you actually go and you watch it because it'll give you the entire answer. It is called, I think it's called How to Rewire Your Brain. It's one of my more recent videos. Allahumma salli Muhammad. Let me see. Where's my laptop? Give me 1 second, you guys. Let me get my laptop and I'll pull up the exact video name, okay? Enjoy the portrait in the back. I'm back. So I'll pull it up, inshallah, and give a brief synopsis, right? So one thing, and this is something I teach my clients as well, right? We're the only creatures that can actually pull our thoughts out of our head Thank you. Amazing portrait. Thank you. We're the only creatures that can pull our thoughts out of our head and analyze them and interrogate them. This is called metacognition, by the way. It's the ability to think about your own thinking. That ability we often disregard. We forget that it exists, right? And when you don't understand that ability of metacognition, what you end up doing is you actually start to believe that your thoughts are a part of you, that your thoughts are a reflection of the true reality of how things are. But that's not true. Your thoughts are renditions of possibilities, right? And you can analyze your thought and you can question it. And so there's these things, sometimes some people refer to it as ants, automatic negative thoughts. When those thoughts about yourself come up, you essentially want to imagine almost like you could pluck the thought out and you can hold it in front of you and you interrogate it and you say, is it true? Okay, and let's say, as an example, you guys, by the way, I'm planning inshallah on doing a video on this, right? I don't wear makeup especially when I'm filming. You might find earlier old videos of me where you'd find makeup on that was if you look at those, most of them have been deleted. But I used to deal with like really bad acne and I would have hyperpigmentation. And now I don't wear it. And inshallah, I'll tell you guys, I'll make a video about why I don't do that. And hopefully it'll help some of you, especially the ladies who are watching it. But if I had an automatic negative thought on a day today where my under eye circles are a little worse, right, and I'm not feeling as my skin's not as bright, the lighting is not the best either today because it's really dark outside, it's about to storm, the automatic negative thought might come to mind that I'm ugly, right? Okay, I can sit there and I can believe that, and I can say, okay, I'm ugly, and feel horrible about it because who wants to feel ugly? Or I can pull that thought and I can interrogate it, and I can say, ugly by whose standards? Ugly why? Ugly because my skin's not as bright, or maybe I didn't sleep as well last night and that makes me ugly? Is that the only thing that there is to beauty? And you interrogate it and you poke holes in it. This is another activity I do with some of my one-on-one clients where it's especially if there's a really deep negative thought and especially if it's connected to trauma, we'll literally map out the story of what you're telling yourself and we will metaphorically poke holes in it. We'll stab it. We'll be like, okay, let's find every reason why this wouldn't be true. And we just keep going at it. And it's taking metacognition to to the max. My mission is to watch all of your videos. Inshallah, I hope that they're helpful to you. Right? So you interrogate it. Now, you ask yourself questions like, is this true? Right? Is it 100% true? Because sometimes things are true, but they're not 100% true. And then you can give yourself some leeway. If it was true, what would that mean for me? And can I change it? And now, instead of sitting there and accepting the reality of something is true just because you thought it and believing that it's a part of you, when it's not, again, it's just a kind of an inkling of a possibility, you get to decide whether you accept it or not. And then you get to decide if you don't like that thought, then what can you do to change it? What can you do if let's say I did feel ugly and I was convinced, okay, I can do a few different things. I can accept it and leave it alone and be like, well, I'm not changing this. And there's some things that might be true that are not happy realities, but you just accept it. If you have a disability, right? Okay, are you gonna magically, if you were, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, but if you were paralyzed from the waist down, are you all of a sudden gonna start walking? No, so you can accept it and you cannot apply the negative meaning to it. You can maintain it at neutral. Or if it's something that can be changed, okay, you can change it. Try to change it. What can you do to make yourself 10%, in the case of considering yourself ugly, 10% more attractive? Right? What could I do? Is there something that I could have changed about my physicality? Now, personally for me, that negative thought doesn't come to mind because I just don't care anymore. I remember, you know what? It was funny, you guys. One day, also, this is another video I'm going to do. I actually need to write it down so I don't forget. I had someone who on one of my, this will make you laugh. On the video that's going completely viral right now, the ladies, here's how to steal your man's heart, honest advice for Muslim women. By the way, I'm glad you guys appreciated that video. That was one of the first time that I just kind of authentically allowed myself to speak in the way that I would normally speak to people and not have to be a little more performative. So I'm glad you guys like that, because sometimes I can be a little direct or sarcastic and, it doesn't always fit everyone's vibe. But someone commented under that. What did she say? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You're not stealing any man's heart with that face. That's what she commented. Now, let's be clear. If I truly had like a negative, if I had a negative sense of self-esteem and I didn't like feel good about the way I looked, I would have read that and it would have crushed me. But I looked at that and I laughed immediately because a few different things. Number one, the comment itself was a reflection of her insecurity, not of mine. Wa alaikum assalam. To everyone who's watching, you guys can comment thoughts, share thoughts of what you're saying. We as women are programmed to think we always have to have makeup on to look beautiful. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And we do it to ourselves because, sometimes we are like, oh, who placed these standards? Men place these standards, but who perpetuated the standard? We did, right? If all of us just said, yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm not going out every single day with makeup, then no one would care. Yeah, my one-on-one coaching is full. It's going to be full for a while. There's actually a very long waiting list, but I recommend you get on the waiting list because as other programs come out, the waiting list people are the first to get access to it. So you can jump on the waiting list, inshallah. And sometimes you want to do one-on-one coaching, but the group coaching option is it might be better for you specifically if you're dealing with trauma. With that being said, when she makes this comment, you're not stealing any man. Salams, I really appreciate your videos. Do you have any tips leaving detaching from a haram relationship when you don't even see a future in it? I will answer that question in a bit. Let me finish this point, inshallah. And oh, you know what I can do? I just realized that I am live, so actually I can look on my computer and watch your comments here. She made that negative comment. I didn't feel anything negative. Like, I didn't feel anything. I think I was annoyed because I was like, why is someone just being rude? And then I replied to the comment and I said something along the lines of, like, honey, I'm not worried about stealing any man's heart. I'm married. Like, we're good. The job was done. And also, again, I'm not insecure about that stuff whatsoever. Part of it might be because I know I have very stereotypically attractive features. I'll take it. Alhamdulillah for my dad giving me my cheekbones. There are certain things that I'm just secure about. But even regardless, the reality of it is I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone is gonna like women who have like thicker eyebrows or who have brown eyes and almond-shaped eyes or whatever it might be. Who cares? Now, I had to come to that place, right? By interrogating those negative thoughts when they did come to me. What do you do to keep your skin clear? I love that question and I'll be very happy to answer it. So for the person who asked, how do you deal with negative thoughts? You interrogate them over and over and you question them. Just like if someone came and told you who you were and they were wrong, you would say, what are you saying? That's not true. Oh, where did you get that from? We do the same thing to yourself and start challenging every time that negative thought comes up. Now, if there's a trauma beneath that thought, the trauma has to be dealt with and healed and resolved, and those thoughts tend to disappear. But sometimes they come back up. Sometimes there's other like little memories attached to the trauma we don't even realize. So, okay, let me ask some questions. Oh, here it is. Okay, first question that I missed. Assalamu alaikum, beautiful sister. May you please discuss how unresolved intergenerational trauma can lead to diseases in the body and how to heal those diseases. Habiba, if you're not in the digital community, inshallah, this is going to be one of the topics I talk about in the digital community. This is a really extensive and difficult topic to speak about. Intergenerational trauma. So trauma can be passed. Essentially what happens is it literally changes your DNA. The DNA is transferred because we are all just makeups of our mother and father's DNA, right? And so with that being said, it's important to understand that just because intergenerational trauma exists, and if it did have a cause genetic changes, does not mean that automatically you are doomed to be diseased, that you are doomed to have these genes expressed. There's something called epigenetics. Not everybody is going to have a genetic predisposition to something and express it. So you can do things in your life, and this is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like that He gave us, is that we have free will and we have things we can do to help reduce risk, and if something does happen, to help reduce the intensity of it, right? As an example, we talked about it with the other, I think, yeah, the other sister, in regards to autoimmune conditions. Let me see. Yeah. When Crystal asked about autoimmune conditions, diet, what you put in what you use to fuel your body, physical activity, the number one, there is not a single thing, you guys. There is no medication, there is no supplement, there is no drink, there is no nothing that can beat the benefits and the physiological changes that happen by exercising, period. Specifically, resistance training, putting on muscle. The amount of benefit that comes, the way it affects your cardiovascular system, your vessels, your heart, your blood pressure, the way it affects your brain. It literally helps to remove toxins from your brain, helps reduce dementia, even Alzheimer's dementia. The way it helps regulate your blood sugar, the way it helps, by the way, when we stress our muscles by working out, it literally releases chemicals into our blood that are molecules that actually help to boost our serotonin, which is why exercise is basically the number one medication for healing depression, or reducing it at the very least if the depression is ongoing with no side effects. So all of these things are in our control, so that the genetic, predisposition to whatever it might be from generational trauma doesn't manifest. Okay, let me see. Are women supposed to obey their husbands? By and large, yes, the Quran talks about this, right? That yes, we are. Now, as to what obedience looks like and what it and the boundaries of it, you never are supposed you never obey someone something that is haram, point blank, period. Your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes first before anyone else's. There's no questioning that. And at the same time, this is like a baseline that also, right? So as women, I'm just going to be straight up with you guys, right? You should know this about me by now. I don't sugarcoat when it comes to the deen. We have such a sudden, visceral reaction when we hear the word obedience. But obedience is not something, I don't even like the use of that word. I think it's too fiery. I think because of the connotations, obedience and like submission have such strong connotations that automatically people start resisting. When the actual meaning of the word is, they say something, you honor and respect and listen to it. And where does that come from? I mean, a marriage, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe marriage? Mawadda and rahmah, right? He places mawadda and rahmah between you two, compassionate love and mercy. Now, when you have that relationship and someone requests something of you, there's no like, oh, well, I'm not going to do it, and how dare they tell me. There's this, I understand where it's coming from, even if I don't always agree with that. And because of that, because I accepted this contract by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I accept the standards of the contract. And because I'm the wife, there are strict standards that I uphold, and that's that. Now, what can we do as women to make sure that that doesn't harm us? Because there are certain standards that might exist, right? And we do them for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but sometimes they're not always good people. Right, that'll uphold it. Another example is like with parents. We have respect and honor of parents, but I have clients that their parents have done horrible things. That doesn't mean that there's no limit to what that person can do, because you have a right of theirs that you have to fulfill. So if you start finding that lines are getting blurred and things are getting difficult and it's starting to damage you, that's when you can take it to a scholar to discuss and be like, to what extent does this need to, do I uphold this before my rights get infringed? And you always want to do it with someone who understands Quran and Sunnah, the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, so they don't misguide you. It's not just an open book. At the same time, before we get married, we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we are identifying good Muslim men, because true good Muslim men, and I have like a lot of I do have subscribers who are brothers, right? And I'm sure they'll agree with this. True good Muslim men are not looking to run their homes with like a whip in their hand, right? They want that loving, honorable relationship, and you in order, like when you establish a relationship with someone who has that, then your part of respecting and honoring their request comes very easily, because it's not coming from a place of you're beneath me. It's coming from a place of we're together in this, and this is a role I have, and this is a role that you have, and if we uphold our roles to the highest level, then we are always going to be in a better place, and our relationship is going to be healthy, and we naturally fall into that as like between femininity and masculinity. So it's such a like jaded conversation. People get so defensive, but there are nuances, and we don't always have to let our ego be the first thing to speak. Try to do your due diligence when finding someone so they don't abuse it, right? Because 100% any man or woman can understand someone who's just so unreasonable and like beats you over the head with that. It's not a happy, healthy relationship. Even if you're doing what what you're supposed to do, you as a woman, and like you're taking care of that. But and then when you're in that situation, that doesn't mean you're damned to it forever. You also, as a woman, can still make requests. You can still make intervention. And guess what? At the very end of these things, marriage is a contract. And if the contract is not being fulfilled on both ends, there's something called a divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it halal for a reason. I know people say like people divorce too easily now. After having friends who've been divorced and understanding the situation in which they're in, I think part of the reason is that we have a lot of people who are very messed up, and they bring a level of like emotional and psychological abuse to the relationship. I was speaking to my sister about this earlier, right? We used to hear from so we used to hear from like older, we wouldn't hear as much about emotional and psychological abuse and divorces from couples from way back, and now all of a sudden it's such a common thing. And until we work on ourselves and heal, because I think a lot of times these behaviors, although we take full accountability when we're harming someone, they do stem from this unhealed version of ourselves, this version that might have experienced trauma or never saw a good example, and you mimic that instead of doing the work on ourselves. If we don't do the work on ourselves, we're going to end up in those situations, and we perpetuate them. That's how generational trauma happens. I was on like a Facebook group, and I'm scared for some of you guys, because it is clear that this idea of like premarital preparation, self-work on your, doing work on yourself before you get married is almost an afterthought or not a thought at all. And I feel like so many women entering into marriage thinking that everything's going to be peachy keen, and so many men are entering into marriage thinking that everything's going to go exactly as I want it to, and I don't need to do any emotional regulation work. I don't need to do any of it. And then you realize you're two different people, two different personalities, two different experiences in life, two different value systems, because what was important to you when you were growing up, even though you might both be Muslim, might be different than what was important to them. And instead of having done the work where you can communicate that healthily, you can have the compromise, you can go back and forth, you can decide what am I going to relinquish for the health of my marriage and what am I going to hold on to because that's just a line I don't cross. You can't even have those conversations because everyone's getting emotional and angry, and you're miscommunicating and you're cursing each other, and then you're not depositing into your marriage. You're not building, we call it relationship capital. You're not building relationship capital, right? And all you're doing is this house you're supposed to be building, you guys are taking hammers and you're just attacking it, right? And we see this time and time again. And I'm always like, I admire people who are willing to admit this. Yeah, I also had a part to play in the failure of my marriage, because at the very least now, hopefully you can do work to redeem it, but you guys do the work beforehand. Don't think you're going to be okay. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. My husband and I before we met each other, did so much work on ourselves. And that had led to a lot of issues that might have come up, either didn't come up at all, or when they did, we were ready to tackle it because we remembered, okay, we're a team. Here's my role. Because I'm striving to be a good Muslim, I studied my role of what a wife would be before getting married, and he studied his role of what a husband would be. And we uphold these roles, and if someone's falling off, we try to support them and not like criticize and demonize them. And then we remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at the top of it. And alhamdulillah, we try our best. Now, obviously, that's not going to work for everyone, but moving on. Let me see any questions. Okay, so the one that Salams, I really appreciate your videos. Do you have any tips of leaving detaching from a haram relationship when you don't even see a future in it? So for the person who commented on this and anyone who's dealing with this haram relationship in general, if you go to some of my live, if you go to the live section of my video, then, sorry, the live section of my channel, I still have the podcast technically, but I had a podcast where I would answer questions, and I had a few questions submitted in regards to haram relationships. I would advise you to watch that because all of my advice, if I spoke about it, it would go for an hour, is on there, and we talk a lot because the issue is if we're finding difficulty detaching from something, there is a psychological dependence there that we need to break, and there's also a spiritual dependence there, and there's we have to be we have to take that spiritual dependence and transfer it so that we're depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that way we're able to filter through the detachment we have to the other person. Regardless if we hope that they're in our lives or not. We have to be super mindful of that. Can this live video be saved for later? Absolutely. What do you do to keep your skin clear? When I was breaking out, this was in 2022. I was breaking out so badly, you guys. SubhanAllah, I don't know what it was, and I thought it was my sunscreen. It was horrible. It was so bad. But alhamdulillah, it resolved. I had to do so much. I went on clindamycin ointment. I went on tretinoin. These are prescription strength, so don't feel bad if you have to go on prescription strength medication. Now all I use to maintain my skin for what it is tretinoin, which is, again, it's prescription, but it's used for acne, but it also is used, it's helpful for exfoliation, so I use it for that. And moisturizer in the morning, and tretinoin at night with moisturizer, and then in the morning, moisturizer and sunscreen. I'm done with the 5-step skincare routine. And then if I have hyperpigmentation, because I still do break out, you can see I still get like the dark spots. I have it's called hydroquinone. There's a company called Musely, Musely, they create like combination prescription, so it has a bit of different medication, and that helps with hyperpigmentation. You can also use chemical exfoliants you can get from like the Ordinary, I believe, and they're to the glycolic acid essentially to exfoliate, and it'll help get rid of those layers so the hyperpigmentation goes away. Okay. Someone says beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. What one thinks is attractive, another doesn't. That's 100% true. Assalamu alaikum, sis. Jazakallah khair for the content. Wa alaikum assalam and wa iyaki. Or we iyakum. I don't know if this is a man or woman. What should you say the best ways to deal with compulsions are? Also, how to fight the nafs and be mindful of being a good Muslim. What a great question. That's a really powerful question, subhanAllah. How long have I been going on for this? This is what I get for not paying attention. Okay, so a few advices here. So compulsions are essentially a part of the addiction cascade. And as per usual, I feel like I always say this. I have a video lined up that'll kind of help you guys with that. I think learning about the addiction cascade, because you can be addicted to really anything. Compulsions are a part of that craving that you get. A few things I think people don't really think about. Sometimes those compulsions are driven by other things in your environment that are subconsciously signaling to you that it's to do this. So for example, if you have a compulsion to watch something inappropriate, I'm saying it, you guys know what I'm referencing, right? Well, you might not realize that the shows you're watching or the music you're listening to, and I'm not saying this, I'm like dead serious when I say this, is actually priming your brain or your mind to crave that thing so that later on you feel the craving, it becomes so overwhelming, and then you end up doing the thing, right? Or sometimes it's stress, right? And so managing those trying to manage the pre-craving aspect is really important. Priming is a psychological phenomenon where without even our conscious awareness, when we see, hear, or sense things, it kind of essentially, what's the word that I'm looking for? I want to say instigate, but that's not the word. It almost Oh my gosh, اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Give me a second so I can get my thoughts together. Whenever this happens, I always think one of you guys accidentally gave me Ain, because I'm usually pretty good at expressing that thinking. The point being is it primes our mind, priming our mind subconsciously signals that, hey, this thing is important, hold on to it. And it makes you more likely to do a certain behavior later on. Okay. So there, and this is like, there's a lot of powerful psychological research about this. What else? So I would say work on that in terms of compulsion, manage your stress, figure out what your triggers are and manage those. Secondly, a lot of times the compulsions are like, they occur because we're leaving holes open for shaitan to slip through and to get us with that thing. So make sure you're working on your iman, and that can look like a lot of different things, right? We think that like working on our iman is such this like super complex, process. It's really not. Think about, where do I lack and what activities can I do that are from the Quran and suggested by the Prophet ﷺ to improve. And when in doubt, Salah and Quran are going to be your go-tos, right? It doesn't have to be that difficult. You need to manage your anger, go read the verses on it, or read, learn about the verses on managing your emotions. Are you, struggling with stress in your life and you're feeling distant? Spend some more time in Salah. Force yourself to. It's not, we're so ego driven as human beings that we think that Islam is supposed to make us feel good, and we want to wait until we feel good to do the things that we're supposed to do as Muslims. That's not how life works. Okay, we are here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the other way around. There are certain things that we just do because it's required of us to do. We are not good. We are not really good about recognizing that. Do the thing. And I tell my clients, motion over emotion. Motion over emotion. Get yourself up and just do it. The more you ruminate on, oh, it's going to be so difficult, and oh, I'm so lazy and I'm so tired, this is again priming yourself to see these beautiful acts of worship that fill your soul, that help you mentally, even if you don't realize it. You're priming them to be burdened. So it's really a lot of times it's a mindset thing. What else? What's your opinion on taking the GLP weight loss shots to lose weight? I know in Islam our body is a trust from Allah, and we will be questioned about how we took it. Obesity is hard to lose. Amina, that is such a beautiful framing. Usually when people are asking me this question, they're asking from like a health perspective, like, oh, do you think it's safe? Do you think it's not? Here's the thing, the GLP-1 agonist medication, so like what are Ozempic, is it the example, Mounjaro, right, these shots. Number one, obesity is a disease state. You can call it what you want. I remember, you guys, I'm a PA. My background is in medicine. The number of risks associated with obesity health-wise are so hard. You should be doing what you can to resolve it. And the reality of it is, yes, it is difficult. It is so difficult for diet and weight loss alone to help shed the weight, or at least to the extent that you need it, because our body has certain mechanisms that start pushing back on that sometimes, and it takes a really long time. I personally see nothing wrong with someone who it was made for that. Those medications are made for diabetes, and then they were also used for obesity to assist weight loss due to obesity, and it works very similarly. It actually affects the way our body metabolizes glucose and insulin, essentially, the way insulin is used. It's fine to use a medication that's used for that was made for that, right? Use it. Now, you'll find out very quickly the shots are not what they seem to be. People get very nauseous on them. Most people actually come off of them very quickly. And you have to make sure that you're doing the work to maintain your health and your exercise and your diet, because what keeps happening is that people are depending on the shot, not realizing that lifestyle changes are needed. Or if you're addicted to food, because this is another big thing, a lot of people are addicted to food, and so your weight gain doesn't come from you not knowing your macros or like your diet. It's you're using food as comfort, and so doing that healing is really important. That way, when you stop the medication, you don't regain all the weight, which a lot of people were doing, and even with the weight loss surgery, it would happen. So I hope that makes sense. Use it. Make sure you're doing this. If you want to, sorry, this is not medical advice. If you want to use it, go to a trusted medical professional who can make sure that you are the right candidate for it, talk about the pros and cons, weigh them, but also make sure you are taking care of your exercise and your diet and any psychological trauma, or if you have any mental illness, so that when in time you just, come off of it and your medical provider decides it's time to come off of it, you don't relapse and fall back. What else? What if I don't like the field of college and my family puts a pressure on me to continue this college and then do whatever I want because it is dentistry? They tell me no, though I am working in the field I like, but I want to increase my knowledge. And what should I do? Oh, okay. I'm going to get in trouble from so many Muslim parents if I tell you guys what my actual opinions are on this. I've seen too many people who went into jobs that they hated for the sake of their parents, only to be miserable and to go right back to school to study something else. But now they're studying when they're in their 30s. They're not as, they're not as free, don't have as much free time. Maybe they have kids. Maybe now it's an even more financial burden because school is expensive, and it gets more expensive the more time years go on. You are the only one who's going to be dealing with the consequences. Now, of course, please don't be a dreamer who thinks like, I'm going to get this job that's going to pay me, like minimum wage, but I love it and I'm okay. You're not going to love it when you can't pay your rent, right? So find that balance. If you enjoy the job and it's going to financially support you long term, especially if I don't know if the person who's asked this question is a male or a woman, is a man or a woman. If you are a brother, you have to be extra careful about this because your job is to financially provide. And it shoots people in the foot when they choose their passion without thinking about the financial aspect. I'm very grateful for the path that I chose, because even though what I do with my business as coaching is really what I'm passionate about, I'm grateful for the financial security that medicine has allowed me to achieve, specifically as a PA. If I was a physician, you don't get financial security. It's a hoax. It really is a hoax in the United States, right? God knows how many hundreds of thousands in debt. You don't make your full income until you're completely finished with residency 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, and then you're attempting to pay this money back, maybe hoping it's going to be forgiven, and then the government tells you didn't meet this one standard, and all that goes out the window. Obviously, you guys can tell how I feel about the pressure on so many Muslims to become physicians. Jazakallah khairan. The detachment tip resonates well even for halal relationships. Getting out of a 7-year marriage with a 2-year-old and the detachment process through tazkiyah is rough, but inshallah it's doable. I'm schizoid. She's avoidant personality disorder. Let me know if you know more about these personalities. Keep up the good work. I do. Funny enough, that is a very difficult combination. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you guys as you move forward. Obviously, yes, these are personality disorders, but personality is amendable, right? And so working with someone, especially you can find, this would be therapy. Maybe you can find coaches who are working about a good therapist who knows those personality types very well. It's going to be prudent for you if you, inshallah, hope to get married again. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. Yes, this will be saved later, inshallah. I am a reaver. I don't know where can I meet someone to marry because I actually don't know any Muslim where I live, and I don't join the mosque. I pray at home, so really I don't know. Marriage is so hard, you guys. Well, I remember the search and the stress of it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of you guys who are still unmarried. Keep working on yourself. Like attracts like. More often than not, if you are someone who's doing that self-work, you are going to attract someone who is, because they're going to be looking for that kind of person, right? We tend to think people just fall into bad combinations or incompatible combination. A lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's an ignored red flag, or we're not doing our self-work. So think of all the things that you can do to boost your chances. Think of it as a numbers game. What are all the things that I can do to boost the likelihood? Yeah, sure, this is a destiny thing too, but your husband or wife doesn't fall from the sky. Sometimes you have to go and meet, find them somewhere. So join the masjid. There sometimes are masajid will sometimes do matrimonial events. Join those. There are several different apps. I know people have certain feelings about the apps. There are apps that are a little more willy-nilly, where they don't have as many like protections, restrictions, or a lot of crappy people on them. And then there are newer apps that are coming out that have a lot more protections, especially for the women, right? Because Islamically, we're supposed to have a wali. There's supposed to be those protections there. And so you can find those apps that you're comfortable with. Half Our Deen is one that I think a lot of people feel like does a good job maintaining those securities, that security. And just keep trying, keep working on yourself, keep making dua, prep yourself to be the best wife you can absolutely be, so that when it does happen, you're ready to receive a good person, inshallah. I hope that helps. I'll go for 10 more minutes and then I have to go grocery shopping. That's actually why I was wearing this. If you are doing EMDR, that would be the physical and mental work. Is there anything else that you could supplement with it to help with the trauma work? How long might trauma work take? So EMDR, for those of you guys who don't know, is known as eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It is a trauma integration modality. And it helps basically for, especially for single event traumas, like if something really big happened that was traumatic, EMDR is a good modality to use. It's usually about 8 to 10 sessions. That is a mental work. The physical work, when I say the physical work, I usually mean like taking care of your physical body, right? So doing things that nourish your body, that respect your body, exercising, eating well, taking care of those things, they feed into each other. It's really important. As for anything that you could supplement with it to help with the trauma work, how long might trauma work take? Supplementing, I mean, anything that helps your mental well-being, journaling, going outside in nature, anything religious. We have this weird thing where we seem to think that spiritual health and mental health are completely separated, and that like if we're mentally unwell or if we're experiencing trauma or any mental illness, that we go to a psychiatrist or a therapist and that's it, khalas. But it's like, no, do that, take the means, right? Go see the professionals, but also work on your faith, work on your iman. Let that boost it, because your soul and your mind and your body are all connected, right? Remember the triangle I talked about in the beginning? So if you're going to work on your mental up here, make sure you're working on your spiritual here. So as the trauma is being released, it leaves a gap, right? Those beliefs that you had that were associated with the trauma, when you integrate your trauma and you release your trauma, it no longer bothers you. By the way, trauma healing is not just a matter of like, oh, I can cope. It's a matter of, at one point, if you're doing trauma integration correctly, any ladies who are interested in healing their trauma, truly interested, like you are ready to do the work, invest mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, you can go to any of my videos. The link is there to apply for my trauma group coaching program or get on the waiting list for the next cohort. The point is, when you release that trauma, it shouldn't shake you up anymore. You should be able to think about it without it making you emotional or kicking you into fight or flight. That's what true healing trauma is. And so when that is released, it leaves a gap of beliefs, because those beliefs are gone. So fill that with beliefs of faith. Fill that with the beliefs Allah wants us to take. Fill it with there's nothing that will give you more peace, you guys, wallahi. How do you know how long might trauma work take? It's different for everyone. There's no way. It's like asking how long would like getting physically healthy take. There's no number I can give to it. There's a period of time as to which I can say, like, I can, as an example, as a coach, I can teach you how to regulate your nervous system in this amount of time. I can teach you how to integrate like particular trauma in this amount of time. But it depends on the complexity. How many traumas did you have? How long did it go on for? What is your temperament or because everyone has different personalities, and some personality traits allow us to be more resilient and handle more stress and difficulty, whereas others, we have to be more intentional and slow on our healing journey because of them. And some of that is environmental, and by the way, others are actually there is some elements of personality that are actually genetically determined. Fun fact. How do you know that you are done with trauma work? SubhanAllah, when you're doing the healing work, because if you experience trauma specifically, it changes your brain. You're never fully done, right? Because your brain might try to revert back to those old neural pathways, those connections that used to be there. Connections in your brain don't break and then new ones form. Old ones weaken and new ones form. So we're trying to build the new ones. That's kind of what the healing is doing. But every now and then, the old one might come out to play, right? And so you have to be very mindful of that, and there's certain things you have to sustain. Just like if you lost a lot of weight and you stopped what you were doing, you're going to gain the weight back. Now, when you're done with the big traumas, because like I said, when you think about them, they don't lead to that intense emotional reaction. You know what I'm talking about if you've experienced trauma, right? The intense, like, dysregulation, we call it, right? Because it's no longer living in the here and now. Your brain moved it to long-term memory. It's been processed. It's done. Okay, I have a very important question, to be honest. When I'm in a position where I came to a realization that I need to heal and work on myself, can I marry like this, or would you say heal first? I say do the work, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you the person who is going to be a good, a good righteous person for you, and he is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, he is someone of deen and he is someone of character, then know that Allah brought him to you in that moment in your life because you are ready to receive it, and receive it graciously and continue to do the work. That's my thought. Also, if someone with mental issues, should I tell that person? Sorry, I got a phone call. Is anyone else getting so many spam calls? I feel like I get 4 spam calls a day. Subhanallah. If I'm someone with mental issues, should I tell that person I'm getting to know in the beginning, or isn't that a good idea? As you are getting to know someone, your health history is, especially when it gets a little more serious, is important to reveal, because at the end of the day, they have the right to know what it is that they're coming into, right? Whether it's an autoimmune condition, whether it's a mental health issue. I think we tend to overwrite things a little too quickly, but I think it's important. Yes, I do think it's important to be honest about that, especially, yeah. And saying this is what my plan is to work on it. Not just saying it for the sake of like trauma dumping, but here's my plan to work on it, because it will affect your marriage. What mental illness will 100% affect your marriage. And there are a lot of people who are married who men and women, men don't think you're excluded, who have severe like mental illness that they disregarded, and then ended up causing a lot of struggles. How to deal with trauma. How to deal with being single at 29 when dealing with your trauma, building good habits and really working on self-development. But this topic, marriage, making you feel inadequate, you keep going. You keep going. The thing about what marriage, and when you're not married, there's always we're human beings. Allah created us in pairs. It makes sense that we're gonna long for that, and it's gonna be hard to cope when we don't have it. But we have to keep doing the work that we can, and finding fulfillment and like joy in things outside of marriage, because if the marriage is not in front of us, meaning Allah didn't create us, it means it's not time for it. And there are other things that we can do to fulfill that longing, right? Building that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Connecting with community. Social connections are really important. I think a lot of people actually overemphasize how much they want marriage, and it's not that they want marriage because they want to be married. It's because they want marriage because they're so lonely. But if they weren't as lonely, they wouldn't have that longing for marriage as much. So connecting with friends and building community, and if having that social support system is really important. So thinking about what you can do in order to build that. Does talking about trauma remind your body? Is it better to forget and distract? Oh, Chris, that's a really good question. If you follow me on Instagram, I post a lot about all these topics around trauma. A lot more than I do on YouTube, actually. It's a little easier to make posts for Instagram. Speaking about trauma 100% reminds your body. Yeah. Why? Because as you speak, all of the what you're doing is you're speaking out trauma, you're bringing up those traumatic memories. The fight or flight system in your brain starts to kick off. The emotional part of your brain starts to fire. And now, as a result of that, your brain is connected to your body. Your nervous system is connected to your body. Your nervous system reacts, and then you feel horrible. Now, the opposite of it, suppressing that, actually isn't good either, because your brain is not stupid and your body's not stupid. It knows that it's suppressing, and it's almost like it's leaking into your body now. It knows it's there, and it's kind of begging like, hey, can we work on this? You need to heal this trauma, and it's going to continue to cause issues. This is why trauma is so correlated with autoimmune disease, because it leads to such an inflammatory cascade, even when you're suppressing it, that it can lead to those issues if not resolved. Talking about trauma is not how you heal trauma. You don't heal trauma by talking about it. And if you go to any of my videos underneath, there should be a link for my webinar. I have a free webinar and a free webinar masterclass on the 3-step process to heal trauma. Any of you guys can go, again, find it on any of my videos. Click on any of my videos and go to the description. We talk about this. Talking about trauma does not heal your trauma. It re-traumatizes your body. You have to process trauma in different ways, and we process it through our body by integrating it. And then if we're going to be doing subconscious healing, mind healing, it's not just speaking about it. There's actually different steps you have to follow so that you're rewiring the experience of the trauma in your brain, and you're not just firing the old wires, right? It's like you're reworking it, I guess. That's the best way I can describe it. Barakallah fiki for everything that you share. Your recent videos especially have been so good and brought me to tears at some point. Keep doing what you're doing, inshallah. Thank you so much, Ruqayya. Allah yabarak fish. That's so sweet of you. It's kind of cool to see. When I sat down to make that marriage video, I don't know what possessed me. I was just like, I feel like nobody teaches us. Let me just put it out there. I had no clue that, it's already at 50,000 videos. I had no clue that I was going to get to that point. And there's like 2,500 new subscribers. So hello to any of you guys who are watching who are new. But inshallah, the videos will continue to come out. All right. There seem to not be any more questions. I appreciate all of you guys who tuned in. Like I said, today's my birthday. If you missed that at the very beginning. Let me see that. If you missed that at the beginning, but I just want to share some reflections that had come up as, when your birthday comes around, sometimes you just sit there and reflect on the past year. And this was definitely something that was on my mind. Crystal said, I got tested for autoimmune but came back negative. Alhamdulillah, but I've had consistent joint pain. I'm confused what I should make of this. This is not medical advice. There are lots of things that can cause joint pain. Immune disease is just one of a very long list. Think about everything in your lifestyle that you can alter that is going to be positive for you. The things you eat, the things you do, whether you are physically active, go see your medical professional. Make sure get their insights on it, and just keep trying and seeing what changes, inshallah. Someone said, happy birthday, may Allah reward you for sharing such beneficial info with us on it. Barakallah feek, or feekum, whoever it is. And thank you so much. All right, guys, I am going to peace out. Forgive me for not being super consistent on here. I used to have a goal of posting 2 videos a week. It's a little more difficult than people realize. The sitting down, the setting up, the filming, the bringing yourself to like a mental space where you can actually share. But inshallah, there will be more videos coming out for any of you guys, again, who are interested in any of the things outside of YouTube in terms of my coaching, my digital community, which is really cool. We do a lot of really cool things. I actually do a monthly coaching session in there. All of that information can be found. I wish I should have put it on here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it on here for you guys. I'll put it on the description of this video. I don't know if the description, if you guys can even access it right now. Can someone tell me if you can access the description of this video? No, y'all aren't. You're not gonna let me know. All right. What is going on here? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the first person who actually commented. Okay, I will put it in the description. You can find it on any descriptions, but just for the people who end up coming back, I will share it. I'm still with you guys, I promise. Okay, khair inshallah. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Take care of yourself. Someone asked a question about how women find husbands in this day and the halal way. Any advice? I answered that a little earlier on this live of in regards to the sister who said she was who had reverted and was looking for marriage. We talked about some of those options. Luna says, how long has this been on for? I've been on for an hour, but I'm leaving now. Assalamu alaikum guys. Thank you so much.